Imagine stepping into your familiar bank branch first thing tomorrow. Same structure, same friendly staff, same welcoming grin. But when you request to access your savings, you're informed that your dollars have suddenly dropped 30% in value from the day before. This isn't due to a market plunge or rising prices. It's because the global community abruptly deemed your money less valuable. Sounds far-fetched, doesn't it? Yet, as of 2026, a group of 10 nations accounting for 45% of global inhabitants has introduced a transaction network that completely sidesteps the US dollar. China has shifted more than 50% of its cross-border transactions away from it. That includes $244 billion in commerce with Russia alone, now handled without dollars. And the US approach? Issue yet another trillion in currency and act like everything's fine. This isn't guesswork. It's the deliberate erosion of the dollar's global control. If you fail to spot the trend, you'll witness your buying strength diminish before your eyes. What the major news outlets keep quiet about is this. Every downfall of a leading reserve currency adheres to an identical four-phase sequence. Not comparable, precisely the same. I refer to it as the reserve currency downfall cycle. Once you identify it, you'll pinpoint America's current position exactly. It begins when a leading economy sustains its superiority via borrowing rather than output growth. Picture it as an unlimited line of credit. You acquire anything now, but the charges build up unseen. Currently, U.S. public debt has reached levels around $38.4 trillion as of early 2026, updated from earlier 2025 figures of about $36.2 trillion. To put it in perspective, that's greater than the combined economic output of several major economies, all charged to the nation's account. The real shock? The country now allocates massive amounts each year solely to interest on that debt. Not reducing the principal, just keeping up with payments. That's comparable to or exceeding major budget categories like defense and scale. Pause and consider. More funds go to debt servicing than to safeguarding the nation in some projections. The latest estimates predict that interest expenses will continue climbing significantly in the coming years. By mid-century, they might absorb a very large portion of total government income. Envision that. A huge share of every tax payment won't fund education, roads, or security. It'll flow to creditors, including overseas regimes, preparing to offload those securities. This is the point where competing nations begin doubting the framework. They don't rebel outright. They explore options, trial new methods, discuss quietly in private meetings. A small-scale illustration. In recent years, a large portion of China's overseas transactions transitioned to the yuan, not over decades, in accelerated periods. In recent agreements, Brazil and China agreed to conduct their mutual commerce without dollars, covering massive bilateral trade. As of recent periods, India established dedicated rupee accounts with multiple nations to enable dealings in rupees instead of dollars. These aren't trial runs in finance. They're precise assaults on the dollar's supremacy, weakening it through countless small blows. Recent statistics show the dollar's portion of worldwide settlements has fluctuated but remains dominant, around 47-49% in key periods, down from higher levels earlier, while the yuan's portion has risen to record levels in some metrics. Now it turns grim. When the slow shift accelerates into a rush, it builds momentum on its own. As more nations sell off dollar holdings, the currency depreciates further. The more it weakens, the more sales occur. It's a vicious loop that amplifies itself. Consider recent BRICS gatherings. They went beyond mere talks on dollar alternatives. They revealed specific strategies for transaction platforms linking multiple countries, with intentions to grow further. The term optional stands out. The money that once handled a dominant share of trade is now viewed as elective by large parts of the planet's people. This marks the final phase. Runaway price surges, property confiscations, societal unrest, monetary revaluation. It unfolds not over years, but in mere months or even weeks. Historical lessons reveal that a reserve currency's failure doesn't merely strip away financial might, it erodes international standing. Armed forces projection, societal sway, all elements reliant on that money's preeminence fall apart. You could argue, though, that circumstances differ now. The US is too massive to crumble. The dollar draws strength from the planet's top military. That's precisely the narrative spun in Weimar Germany during Britain's pound downturn, and in every realm that saw its currency unravel. Allow me to detail the actual events. First case, Weimar Germany, 1923, the era when a cartload of cash barely afforded a loaf. In November 1923, in Berlin, an academic enters a coffee shop and buys a brew for 5,000 marks. He savors it while scanning the news. A quarter hour passes, and he requests another. Identical spot, identical drink, now costing 7,000 marks. This wasn't fiction. It was everyday reality in Weimar Germany amid the worst hyperinflation documented. Prior to World War I, the German mark ranked among the globe's most dependable currencies, trading at 4.2 marks per US dollar, steady, esteemed, gold-supported. By November 1923, $1 fetched 4.2 trillion marks. The overlooked fact, the war itself didn't ruin the mark, the debt management did. Post-war, Germany faced massive obligations, plus more in gold-based reparations from Versailles. Confronted with this overwhelming load, leaders opted for the easy path over tax hikes and backlash. They ramped up money production. From certain periods, the central bank acquired foreign money with marks without caps, officially to cover reparations in solid currency. But analyses uncovered the truth: intentional currency devaluation to evade debts. Reflect on a national bank purposefully undermining its money. Costs doubled roughly every few days. Employees received wages midday because morning earnings couldn't cover noon meals. Lifelong savers saw their nest eggs vanish in hours. Bread priced at low amounts early in the year hit astronomical figures by year's end. Textbooks often omit that this wasn't mishap or byproduct. Evidence points to orchestrated downfall, fiscal sabotage masked as bungling. The human toll, breakdown of society, shortages leading to violence, hunger. Despair fueled radical politics, eroding trust in governance and paving the way for extreme shifts later. Stability returned via international initiatives and new currency replacements. Institutions handed obsolete notes to recyclers by the truckload for paper reuse. Yet the deepest scar was enduring fear. Even now, generations later, deep-seated dread of rising prices remains. Second instance, the British pound sterling, the gradual fade of an imperial giant from the 1940s through 1970s. For centuries, the pound dominated as the ultimate global reserve. In its heyday, it facilitated a huge share of international exchanges. Sterling signified trustworthiness, akin to British finance. Countries stockpiled pounds as secure assets, much like dollars now. Then flaws emerged. World War II not only emptied coffers, but demolished the aura of unbeatability. By post-war periods, Britain was heavily indebted to allies. The realm was insolvent. A key episode, the pound convertibility crisis shortly after. Britain secured large loans for survival, with stipulations on exchangeability. In just weeks, massive assets drained away. Holders scrambled for dollars, detecting vulnerability. Officials halted exchanges soon after. The harm was irreversible. The globe witnessed the pound's inability to sustain worth without restrictions. Decades of controlled erosion followed, with value drops in multiple years. Britain clung to the pound's worldwide status despite clear economic signals against it. The concealed aspect: key decision-makers viewed British woes as chances to bolster other currencies. By certain years, desperation drove Britain to seek international rescue funds. The pound's global reserve slice shrank dramatically over time, but the gravest impact was mental. Britain shifted from ruling vast territories to a secondary power unable to assure its money's stability. The pound's fall reshaped not just rates, but national self-perception. Third example, the Soviet ruble, the vanished colossus of the 1980s to 1991. In late 1991, people line up endlessly for basic food, gripping rubles that devalue as they stand. Shops stand empty. The Soviet Union, a behemoth with atomic arsenal and worldwide clout, teeters on the brink of oblivion. The surface narrative: socialist failure. The core truth: monetary breakdown shattered government credibility. During earlier decades, the ruble served multiple states and allies, managing commerce throughout its bloc. Though not universally reserved like the dollar, it reigned in its domain. The downfall's roots traced to deficits funding the vast system: defense outlays, aid, administrative excess. Rather than generating wealth, they minted rubles and depended on commodity sales for support. Commodity values tanked in key years. Foreign income plunged sharply. Abruptly, the ruble's assumed backing dissolved. Still, printing continued to uphold the facade of steadiness. What few realize, effective demise began earlier than official breakup. Confidential records revealed top officials were fully aware the ruble was on a path to ruin. They recognized the familiar sequence: mounting debts, relentless money creation, and eroding public faith. Yet they found themselves cornered. Halting the presses would trigger instant insolvency, while persisting would lead to a drawn-out breakdown. They opted for the latter. Fast forward, underground exchange rates ballooned massively compared to official figures. People realized their leaders were fabricating the worth of their own money. What came next was explosive price surges. Costs skyrocketed enormously in following years. Accumulated wealth vanished, retirement funds turned to dust, and the unspoken agreement between rulers and the ruled fractured irreparably. The key takeaway is that the downfall wasn't a gentle slide. It was a sudden detonation. A global powerhouse one moment, non-existent the next. But the repercussions went deeper. It birthed oligarchs who snapped up public resources at bargain prices, sparking widespread destitution, population decline, and a wasted era. That lingering wound continues to influence stances today. It's impossible to think that doesn't shape tactics now. Across these three cases, diverse settings, yet the core sequence repeats without variation. Now, let's connect this to the present. U.S. public debt has continued rising significantly, with ratios to output well over 100% in recent data. The real danger isn't the raw figure, it's the upward momentum. Recent budget cycles showed large shortfalls amid calm conditions. Projections forecast continued high deficits and debt growth. The implication? Debt maintenance could swallow large portions of government intake, leaving little for actual services. This mirrors the onset of every past monetary downfall. Obligations that appear controllable until they spiral, servicing costs that seem bearable until they detonate. Meanwhile, as debates rage over borrowing, adversaries are constructing bypass routes. Recent BRICS developments include ongoing work on cross-border payment initiatives and platforms, with pilots, discussions, and targets for broader use in coming years, some aiming for operational steps by 2026 or later. These involve local currencies, raw materials, and gold. Central banks have been adding gold steadily in recent years. The motive? Shielding against dollar volatility. Actions speak louder than words. Recent warnings and responses highlight tensions around dollar primacy. In recent stats, a very high percentage of certain bilateral exchanges occur in local currencies, bypassing dollars. China's payment networks continue expanding. Global reserve holdings show gradual shifts away from dollar dominance over longer periods. The drop is quickening in some metrics. In response, borrowing limits have been adjusted. The overlooked angle? Shedding dollar reliance isn't hostility toward the U.S., it's aversion to vulnerability. Lessons from events like asset freezes taught nations to craft safeguards. Even partners are diversifying. Energy deals increasingly use non-dollar forms. The pace is picking up. Projections see continued debt growth. Once thresholds are crossed, stabilization demands harsh measures, no easy alternatives. Regimes favor inflation for its subtlety. But America's case heightens risks. As the anchor, its fall drags the system down. Competitors craft backups to endure potential fallout. Inevitability looms, timing and speed are the unknowns. Counterpoint 1, the mightiest armed forces secure the dollar. Past powers boasted top militaries during crashes. Force extracts temporary obedience, not enduring confidence. Sanctions spurred rethink and diversification. Coercion can't sustain appeal. Politicizing money erodes it. Counterpoint 2, substitutes aren't viable yet. Accurate, they can't supplant today. But the plan is readying networks for potential stumbles. Practical and targeted steps continue. Counterpoint 3, scale prevents failure. Economies hinge on dollar steadiness. Half right. Reliance is why others seek escape. History mocks too big claims. Dollar's role ties fates to U.S. whims, unacceptable for sovereigns. Core lesson. Elite currency demands budget restraint. Steady governance and worldwide belief, all under pressure as options emerge. Projected path draws from trends in debt, rates, reserve shifts. Continued gradual decline, then potential acceleration. Monitor key indicators like debt ratios, reserve shares, trade patterns, gold buys, alternative system volumes. Household assets face risks from value drops. Shifts follow mental progression. Dismissal, quiet moves, broader discussion, frenzy. We're midway in some views. Stage transitions can span limited time historically. Many learn late their funds were in fading notes. Extended groups cover large population and output shares. A parallel force alters dynamics. If large output trades dollar-free, pull weakens. Trade thrives, sans heavy reserves. That's the tipping line, nearing in views. Records prove public spots collapse too late for safeguards. Elite act first, aware ones next, crowds last. Avoid being past examples, late victims. Spot the cycle, track phases. Others aren't gloating, they're armored for fallout. The issue isn't transition's certainty, it's preparedness. The slyest feat of a fading money is persuading all of its invincibility right up to the moment it crumbles.